Hey everybody, welcome to Art of the Game, where three experienced game masters give you GM tips for your D&D session or any other game out there. And Woody, you came up with the original idea for this series, so why don't
Yeah.
you tell us what today is about?
Okay. Well, this is one realistic. This one we probably should have got to a lot sooner in the series. But there is
Maybe
a.
we did. Maybe we can do this and it happened early. No.
Oh yeah, maybe we can modify the playlist.
We actually
Um,
did talk about this on our original video. Yeah.
a little bit,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it needs its own episode. So the
Mhm.
the storytelling of RPGs is what I guess we call it emergent, right? So because what's going to happen is that as the course of the storytelling, you find the narrative if you're doing it right. You don't necessarily have the narrative from the beginning, and if you were to survey game masters, you'll probably find is like those people that showed up with a storyline in mind probably found it didn't work. Those that allowed it to emerge on its own probably found more success, right? And you certainly have the players more invested because it's their story, right? But the way that works is that you're building on what's happened from the game, right? Because you generally can only prep so many, like you're prepping for each week. You don't necessarily know what's going to happen next week or 2 weeks down the road because you don't know what the players have done, right? So as these sequences occur, you are doing things you don't necessarily know what you're setting up. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. And but what ultimately what's going to happen is you're going to have a series of events occur in the course of the game. You're going to figure out what that means. You're going to do the next episode. You can figure out what that means, and you're going to discover what the story is. And then, oh right, well this thing that happened earlier actually was this other thing I've invented now, right? And you have to tie all these elements together. So the concept of the retcon, the retroactive continuity, is how RPG storytelling works. It's always worked that way. It's how it will always work, and it is actually what happens. It's you're fooling yourself if you think you're going to plan so detailed in advance.
And
Oh,
just to
Greg,
be
you look like
clear,
you have opinions.
there's multiple meanings of retcon,
Yeah,
and the meaning we're not talking about is where something happened in the past and you come and you say you take that back. It's actually the opposite
right.
of that.
Yeah,
It's something
exactly.
happened in the game and then you're changing what was going to happen
Or, or
in order to take into account that new thing.
right, but often, and I do this all the time, is you create an event because you need something dramatic to happen, but you don't actually know what it means. Right?
Yeah.
You don't know who was behind it. You just know that we need an event, we need something to engage the players. So we're going to do it. We're going to create something, but I don't actually know what the big plot behind it is. I'm just going to pretend like there is. You're going to
Yeah,
make
this
it look. Yeah, yeah. Go
we
ahead.
had we talked about this a little bit ago, I
Yeah,
think,
probably.
about starting a new campaign.
Hmm.
And we talked how it's like start small.
Yes.
The goblins bust into the tavern, whatever, something like
Yeah.
that. And that's a perfect example where you can literally start with almost nothing, and
Yeah.
then as the story progresses, you find out more about the backstories and
Hmm.
what's actually going on, and
Yep.
that's just completely redoing everything. Like you're rearranging the world as things are happening,
Yeah.
and that's
But
it's actually one of the easiest ways to DM.
yeah,
People don't realize that. They think that's like a hard thing. It's actually one of the easiest ways to do
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It's just that when the goblins busted in the tavern in the first place, you didn't know who hired them.
Yeah.
You know it sorry, Greg. We'll get you here in a second, Marks. But we're the thing that I think that GMs have to really wrap their head around when they're doing this is you're not writing a book, you're not scripting a movie, and you're not writing a TV series, right? You don't have control of these things. You're one voice amongst many. You were the voice. Your vote counts for more, but you still can be outvoted. You don't. You're if you want to control the narrative, you have to. You should go write a book, right? And that's not how this works. Like it is emergent. You have to it isn't the case where you're writing a TV show and you know 6 episodes in advance who the bad guy actually is and you're setting it up. You're setting it up and then figuring it out as you go.
Even
Hey, Mark.
people who play. Oh, sorry, Marks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need the spotlight of initiative over here now.
Okay, so you have the conch, you can talk.
So rather than using the term in a way like Crisis of Infinite Earths, or DC does every few years,
Yeah.
comics,
Yeah.
where they reboot all of history or something, what we're using is just we're recontextualizing events in the past based on new information and
Yes.
building new layers on the story, which
Yeah.
really if you write series, especially comic books,
Mhm.
they have multiple teams of writers that come in and out and cycle. That's really what you do when you write, because you look at what happened before and you go, how can I put a new twist on this that nobody knew about, and
Yep.
and stuff, and that's what you're doing with the GM, as a GM, with your players,
Mhm.
taking in their feedback and improvising and stuff.
Well, that's how Norman Osborn ended up becoming the Green Goblin.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was never supposed to be, but somebody came in later and go, well, you know what, we're just going to do it this way, but that's not what the previous writer was setting up, and so they changed it.
Yeah, it happens a lot in comic books because you get all these different creative teams. And then like for example, in Buffy the Vampire Slayer with Spike, if anybody knows that show,
Yes.
Spike, Joss Whedon originally planned on killing off Spike early on, but he was so popular they kept him around and he became a fan favorite. And he had to bow to the fans.
Yes.
I only know Cowboy Bebop Spike. But the thing I was going to say is, even if you're playing a pre-built module, just change it to meet whatever the players bring into it, because that'll make it way better anyway. I don't think I've ever ran a module at its face value, because it's so much easier to not actually. It's so much easier to actually, what you're calling retcon, to go through and change things based on what happens and what the players think and backstories and stuff like that.
Well,
so nothing sacred there.
It's okay. Go.
So story games is one category. Tabletop role-playing games like PBTA or Fate and stuff really take that to another level in a way. For example, the Between, which is originally a Powered by Apocalypse game. Mm-hmm. It's a mystery game, and that whole, actually Brindlewood Bay, I guess, was originally, but that whole company does use that system. And it's basically like they give you tips, they give you clues, the players come up with theories, and then the GM's job is to bring one of those theories to life, basically. Yeah. So they have to go in not already going, this is what the monster is or whatever it is. They have to go based on the feedback and theories of the players, and then you kind of together come up with the result. So that's kind of interesting.
Well, I was actually about to go in a similar direction, because like the thing about the storytelling is that, like, the only thing that's canon is what's been said, right? Like, and of course, obviously, you can have the, well, it was actually this. I know I said this, but it was actually, it turned out he was using an illusion or whatever. But like, the thing is until you've said it, until somebody has said it, it hasn't happened yet, right? So like, it doesn't matter what all your plans are. Maybe you're thinking, oh yeah, it's going to be the evil queen's really behind it all, whatever. But then, like, you can still change that. It could still turn out to be something else, right? And as we've said many times, if the players come up with a theory, right? Like, oh well, and they really invested in a very compelling theory, and you can go, yes, of course, that's what it always was.
Well, you don't have to say it. You can just be like, that's what you say inside.
Yeah,
and then
exactly,
you start giving them clues to that.
yeah. Or you go along with it. Yeah, because kind of like what I did to my friend Keenan, right? It's like, oh well, this guy's obviously the main bad guy, and Keenan's like, ooh, that's good, So and I was wrong, but then but I changed it, right? Because like it actually made more sense than what he was doing, and so like. And I really want to have Keenan on to talk about this experience, by the way, guys, because like I think that would be really great to have the guy that actually lived through that bullshit actually talk about what it was like. But like it's until it's actually happened, right? Until you've had the characters experience that event, it isn't really what you're setting up. Like it's not set in stone, and you can change it in any which way. And yeah, sometimes you have to go along with what the players think it is, because that's their investment, and you want them to, it's fun to have to turn it in their face, go, how you were wrong, this other guy, like, damn you. But sometimes it's also better to have it turn out that they were right, and like that can be more powerful.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it, but when you're planning, you just have to plan like maybe some touch points, maybe some big players that you think are involved.
Yeah.
Maybe an event or two. And then you're just in week to week mode. And and that's all that really matters. And it's so much easier to DM to GM in that mode than it is to try and come up with all these things. Because keep in mind, if you've been DMing or GMing for, I don't know, let's say a year straight, okay, you could probably come up with a basic monster in your head without even looking at a stat block.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can, Woody. I'm pretty sure, Mark, there's a ton of Sims that you can do that with.
I actually just did it with some people. I
Yeah.
had to because they're because you can't, like, sometimes you can't even prep for the game because where it ended off, you don't know what they're going to do in the next 20 minutes, and there's no way to plan for it.
Yeah.
You know,
like you can have baddies and motivations, so those motivations can change.
They can,
But there's really not much more to plan than that. It's just like, and then you go week to week.
Well, because you can only plan for the next session, and sometimes you can't even do that. So it's like you have to be prepared for whatever decision they make, and then go in that direction, right?
You get those players who are like, I'm getting ready to open the door, and then you end the session, and then the next time you're like, never mind, I don't open the door. I go to this new place now, and you're like, oh
no. Well, like right now, I'm running a campaign on my home game with my main group of friends where the it's a multiversal thing where there's kind of like sliders where they're going from world to world, right? And so I don't know how invested they're going to be in the different realities they visit, and I don't necessarily know which one I'm going to have them go to next. Like I kind of have an end goal where, like, I know there's a main villain they have to eventually defeat, but each world will have to have a different plot and it's got a different experience, and I don't have that all planned out. I don't know what it's going to be. I just kind of like, what sounds fun? Okay, let's send them there, and like, you know, so. And they, the other side of it too is they actually, I can't force them to leave the world they're on. They have to decide to leave, and they might be there for a long time, right? Like I think the last what's my notes here? Like the last place they were in, I think they spent 7 sessions. No, yeah, they spent about 7 sessions in one of these worlds. That's enough to level up, like almost twice. And
did they buy an inn and start a business? Are they those kind of players?
Yes, actually. So this player I mentioned in the previous episode who was playing our hacker in my Cyber Symbiosis campaign. So she's kind of developing a reputation for being, let's say, very capitalist. And so what she did is she picked a background for a character where she's like a toy designer. So they ended up on a wild. What I did, Marks, actually, you're gonna love this. I drew inspiration from your Call of Cthulhu Down Darker Trails game.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yes, and so I was actually borrowing some plot points from you, but it was just a little bit more over the top. So it was like a combination of that and Deadlands, and so like the black stuff that was making the zombies was what they were dealing with, right? And there was also radioactive coal that was like, the fueling their advanced weird tech. But anyways, so she comes into this world and decides that the way she's gonna make money is by inventing a Rubik's Cube. and so she builds a Rubik's
sold toy in history, I think.
Yeah. So my friend invents a Rubik's Cube, goes to the local general store, strikes a deal, selling the Rubik's Cube to this guy. And so naturally, everywhere they go, they're running to people that have Rubik's Cubes that are trying to figure it out. So it becomes this weird, like, kind of subplot. And so that's what she was doing to make money. And everybody was like, for one of the sessions, they all just went off and did different things to come up with cash. It's like, we don't have a storyline. Okay, so Chaz was off, like, apprenticing to a blacksmith, making, smashing steel and making armor. My friend Jeff was off, like, decided to try to become a sheriff's deputy, which naturally you don't just walk off the street and become a deputy. So he got the bounty board, which I finally got them on a plot. Another guy went off to the colonel, right, which is the estate where you see the estate, you never see the cows, but you always hear them, and the colonel looks just like Andy Griffith, and he's a bad guy. Every Western town has the colonel. Anyways, so he gets this opportunity to do a quest where he assassinates this guy who's going to be running a union, and then is trying to unionize the miners, and he takes the job and doesn't tell anybody, so he's gonna go kill him himself. and then there's this weird plot line I did where, like, the guy was actually possessed by a bug that took over his body, and the friend's like, well, that was messed up. Okay, and he leaves, and he never picks it up. so he kills the guy, a spider jumps out of his mouth, and he's like, oh, that's really messed up. And then, like, they just drop it. They never pursued it. And it's just I'm just like, I'm trying to build something here, guys.
That's if it was a TV show. That's the one where, like, what was about the spider? I never find out.
No, that's Star Trek Next Generation, like freaking season 1.
Yeah, I know the conspiracy one. Yep.
Yeah. Those Thankfully the MMO picked it up. Anyways,
Yeah.
so
That's a good MMO.
Yeah.
Do we want to do like bullet points for this one? Do you guys have like specific?
well,
'Cause
Greg, if it becomes a running joke, if it makes you happy, yes.
don't over plan, right?
Well, you can't. Like it's not possible, right?
Yeah,
And so
can't
like
overplan.
when you're dealing with retconning, like the narrative is going to evolve. It's an emergent story. Like it's going to develop itself organically.
Useless.
And if you let the narrative evolve for itself, right, based on what the players do and build around what the players are doing, and then assign meaning to the events that occur after the fact in relation to what the players are doing and what occurs, you're actually going to find that you're going to find that your campaigns last longer. The players are going to be more engaged because they're actually part of it. It's actually their story. Then whether or not it's some other thing that like you do in Curse of Strahd, that's great, and if maybe they want to play it, but there needs to be a connection to the game. They have to be connected to it somehow. Like it's
I think that's basically all we said, right? Like don't overplan and let what happen. Oh, what was that statement you made? Only what's been said is what our
it hasn't been happened until you said it.
Canon. That's right. Yeah.
It's not canon
happen until
it's not canon until you say it, right? And at that point it can be anything.
And even then you can play around with that. So
totally.
Someone died. Did you get to look at the body?
Well, that's the thing is it's like you don't know when you create an event to engage them, and you don't have to know what it means. And it's better if you don't, because like the inspiration comes when it comes. It comes in the moment. It comes in like discovering what this thing means, right? It's like you're gonna be laying in bed, you're gonna try to sleep, so this idea hits you. Oh my god! And you're like picking up your phone and putting the notes in your notepad. But it's like you don't know when the great inspiration is going to come. And it's going to like it. Don't overthink it. Let the story evolve, right?
Yeah.
And
use retcons.
Hang the goblins.
Yeah, exactly. Hang the goblins. Yeah, retconning is a storytelling technique. It cannot be overstated how valuable it is. When you get really good at it, it's going to sing.
Yeah. So I think that's it. Don't overplan. Let the narrative evolve based on actions, events, backstories, whatever. And nothing's canon, nothing's sacred until it's said, and even then. But if you said it, try to keep it consistent. I mean, you can always say it's illusion, but don't do that too much.
Well, you also kind of have to remember. I mean, like what happened. The tricky part is when the players actually have good memories or take notes. It's not a bad thing to
we should write that. We should say record session or
take notes.
GM takes notes. Yeah.
Or a player could take notes if they want.
Yes, but that's the notes for them. Like it's the players' notes.
It's more fun to have their own notes. But yeah. That's a big one. I think this one here is you do want to keep track.
It's also you don't have to be super complicated about it. Like I literally record everything on this phone, and I just put it in front of the speaker, hit record, and we're good. And I just try not to be too far away from it. But it's like you don't have to be high tech to have a good recording that's useful. You're not going to be probably not releasing that on YouTube, but it is it is kind of fun sometimes to go back and listen to the games. And sometimes you have to go back and like find this thing that you need, like a reference to something. Or I was just doing that the other day where I needed to figure out a monster, and I was like, what was the thing I did? I wanted to actually get the description right.
And if you have a little bit more tech savvy than Woody, which is to say you're out of the Stone Age, then you can just use OBS Studio or something like that.
He's not wrong. Craig's not wrong. I am not tech savvy.
It reminds me when I was in high school, I used to play a game that I made up. I would use different rule systems, but I would actually keep copies of people's character sheets, and I would keep a log of like their characters and who played them and what their current status was or something. And then I would keep like mission notes on each mission thing and what happened and stuff. And that was just, I remember finding that when I was 20 years later or 10 years later or whatever, and going, oh, wow, this is really cool. Memories and stuff too. So another reason that journal.
Yeah. And for legal reasons, I think we need to say some states are two-party consent states, so you have to tell them that you're recording. If you're going to do that.
You know, that's what's weird is apparently when they got the latest update in the iPhone, there's a button on the phone where you can just tap it and it automatically starts recording your phone call.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, you just go tap, I'm recording it. Oh, so interesting.
It's state by state. So I don't know.
I'm sure it's not legal at all, but it's, I mean, I gotta say I've got a new job. I just started today, and there were times where I was wondering if I should be going into some of the meetings on the old job with a recording in my, like a phone in my pocket, recording the meeting. Like, do I really, because it was there were some points where I'm like, oh dear, this is not. This
I think there are laws around that, so yeah, you should be careful. But,
check your existing laws.
I didn't do it. I was just wondering, like, is this the kind of meeting I'm about to have? So, fortunately, none of that stuff happened.
But cool thing is, doing actual plays, you have it recorded all the time, and then I always do recaps too.
It has implied consent.
Yes,
Washington is a two-party consent state, so both parties need to consent to being recorded.
Interesting.
I'm going to send the police to it now.
My wife is warning me to bring stuff in off the porch because apparently there is a very slim possibility of a tornado tomorrow. They always say that it's like 2% chance. I mean, technically we're in tornado tomato
territory.
Yeah. Apparently Washington is
I've seen Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
No. Apparently we're slightly adjacent to Tornado Alley. So there's, but I mean, there's a mountain range. It's like a mile tall or something in the way. I don't think it's going to happen.
Are you on the west or east side of the mountain range?
I'm just south of Seattle, so we're on the west side. So but apparently they did get a tornado many years ago that touched down in Vancouver, Washington, but it was like a tiny thing. But it wasn't enough. Yeah, it was nothing. But yeah, so it like touched down next to like an old, I don't know, like an old military base or something, like made of like wood construction. So
see, we don't have these problems in Florida.
Yeah. Florida never has anything to worry about.
Weather there. Yeah.
No, actually, the last hurricane made like multiple tornadoes that wrecked houses.
Yeah.
All right, so we might retcon that ending. I'm not sure why we're talking about tornadoes right now. But thanks everybody for watching this Art of the Game. Make sure to leave comments. What do you think about retconning and how have you had to improvise your stories at your table? And be sure to subscribe, follow if you'd like to check out our other episodes. So thanks.
And if you're going to watch the new Twister movie, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment on that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we actually have a genre talk episode about twisters. I'm just saying, tie-in. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Until next time.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
When the dice roll high, we touch the sky. But when they crash, it's a belly laugh. Genre play, lighting the way. Our tales are